Do take the survey. Space industry needs to know how you feel about sustainability. So as Luke alluded to, I'm a marketing and communications guy who has spent my career supporting science, technology, and engineering organizations because I love those things. I love working with people who do those things and who are good at those things. And I have spent much of my career around brilliant people whose intelligence and competence felt like it so very much overshadowed my own. And the organizations that I worked for in many cases, unfortunately, fully promoted that notion. There were superior forms of expertise to which all other forms of expertise, including my own, were subordinate. Classic imposter syndrome fuel. I started my career at a government science agency at which the superior form of expertise was PhD geologist. And I had a wonderful boss who did so many good things for me in that job. But one thing she did that I really wished she hadn't was she would introduce me to people as her PhD geologist because I had a master's in journalism. And can I tell you the look on PhD geologists' faces when she would tell them that? They weren't buying it, and I wasn't buying it. It felt fake, and it felt phony. Fast forward a few years, I took a job with a company helping the government solve a variety of really complex problems. I was so excited to work here, but this place somehow had cranked up the level of brilliance in terms of the people who worked there even more. And so my perception of being an outsider, of being an imposter, was at an all-time high until I was asked to support this company's new commercial space strategy. And it just clicked. It just made sense to me. It helped me reconnect with a childhood love of loud, fast flying things that I had cultivated as the son of a career Air Force veteran. I would go home and think about it, even when I wasn't being paid to think about it. It was the most fun, it was the most exciting, it was the most invigorated I had been at any point in my 2+ years at that job. And then I had the quintessentially corporate experience of helping to lead a reorganization that eliminated my role. This was a low for me. This was devastating. It was distilled imposter syndrome. But I had this spark of space that had been lit. And I also had a former boss who was working at a space company and offered me a contract to come work for her. And I had other opportunities, full-time jobs, doing other things. I said, I don't want to do anything else. I had tasted space and I wanted more. So I took the contract. The contract became a full-time job. Down the rabbit hole I went, or the wormhole, sorry. And I was hooked. And this great thing happened the more I worked in space. Space became bigger than my imposter insecurities. It became bigger than my comparisons. I just became a space nerd on the journey with fellow space nerds. And the incredible thing here that I also realized about myself was that I had taken people who were in what technical organizations often call support functions, like mine, HR, admin, finance, policy, et cetera. I had been categorizing them as imposters and outsiders as well. I realized I'd been doing that, and the more I got into space, I said, no, they're not imposters or outsiders. They're space nerds too, on the journey with me, with all of us, necessary to the whole. And so these folks, admin, finance, HR, what's really important to focus on here is that obviously I still suffer the effects of imposter syndrome and of feeling like a phony. I can't tell you how excited I was to see that I was following Emily Calandrelli on stage here today. Remind me to tip whoever came up with the schedule. But what I decided I was going to do is focus on being me. And more importantly, focus on hopefully being useful to you. And I'm going to say something up here that I've never said in front of a group of people. And that is, space needs me. It needs me. It needs what I do. It needs what I'm good at. Thank you. And you know what else? Even more than that, space needs you. It needs what you do. Let's take a moment of affirmation here. I know I could use it after that hiccup. Let's all say space needs me together. Space needs me. One more time from the back. Space needs me. It does. It needs the passion and the purpose that we all bring. It needs admin and finance and HR and operations and rocket scientists, engineering, science, etc. It needs people who look and think and live differently from each other working together in service to humanity that looks and thinks and lives differently. My point is, you're here because you want to be here and because you have value to offer. You belong here. You're not an imposter. You don't need to compare yourself to other people. We're all space nerds together on the journey. I belong here. You belong here. Space needs us. So let's talk a little bit more about why space needs us and the nature of space and its service to humanity. Star Trek fans, I know that's a superfluous question at a space conference. There we go. Live long and prosper. I'm a Next Generation Deep Space Nine guy myself, but there's a scene in Star Trek I, original cast, where Kirk and Scotty are in a shuttlecraft and they're making their way along this huge structure in orbit over Earth. And they get to the end of the structure and they turn, and there, arrayed in all its glory, lit up is the Enterprise in space dock. And there's all these little ships flying back and forth, bringing supplies and repairing things and upgrading things. That scenes like that give me goosebumps. I just nerd out on that stuff. And I should have known, it was on-orbit servicing before I knew what on-orbit servicing was. Should have known I was going to go work for an on-orbit servicing company. It's sci-fi, it's far-fetched, but there is a salient point for us. And that is that space is just freaking cool. It is. It pushes the boundaries of ingenuity and engineering. It's this constant frontier where excitement and wonder and challenge speak for themselves. I mean, rocket launches and astronauts and spacecraft don't require much added meaning to draw attention to themselves. And that's actually a problem. Space is, I think for many, is something that never really provides tangible value or meaning to their lives. It just sort of seems to exist for its own sake. And that's not good enough. We know space is not just this remarkable playground for giant aerospace companies and governments and SPAC-backed startups and billionaires. In many ways, it's just the plumbing of modern life. And so for many people, it doesn't matter to them until it doesn't work, like plumbing. But I wonder how many people also feel like they don't matter to space or to those of us who work in space because we seem to be too busy focused on the incredible and the intangible. I think for those of us in this room, we know better. We know better than that. We know what space is doing to enrich and help and serve humanity. And so we need people who are thinking about what space can do to even further benefit and serve society, life here on Earth. We need people who aren't content to think that space speaks for itself, but are wondering, how can space speak for humanity? How can it serve? This is why space needs all kinds of people, because we have to think about the challenges that people who think and live and look differently than we do are facing, that space could help them address. There is a guy, Jason Kanigan. He's the founder of something called the Cold Star Project. If you're in this room, Jason, and I didn't recognize you, I am shouting you out for a good reason. He has a mantra, make space boring. I kind of love that, because I think what space needs is a little more ubiquity, maybe even a little more mundanity. Now, making space boring is a technical challenge. Obviously, making space more reliable and repeatable, a little less risky and exciting, is difficult to do from a technical perspective, but I think it's also a leadership and a relational challenge. You all are leaders by virtue of being in this room and being part of SGAC, you're leaders. What is leadership among many things? Leadership is serving people by putting them in a position to fulfill themselves. Sustainability. Luke talked about a survey. Sustainability is a service. Among other things, it is making things work as well as they can for as long as they can for the maximum benefit possible. Now, these definitions of leadership and service and sustainability are not different for space than they are for other industries or sectors, but space is doing, and space can do, incredible things to bring new meaning to those concepts. So what do? We have to get to know the people who are or could use space better, whether it's surveys, focus groups, festivals, contests, whatever, I don't care. Pull the public in and understand, we've done a great job of what is space already doing for you, Day Without Space. These are great, worthy efforts. Let's go a step further and say, what could it do? What do people need that we're not giving them now? How do we go a step beyond the end user to the end user's end user and figure that out? So really, I think what our opportunity to be here is servants. All kinds of people need space. We need to get to know them better so we can understand how to better serve them. So I'm going to conclude with asking you to send 2 invitations to the people around you that you interact with as often as you see fit. One invitation is to your colleagues, your friends, your classmates, coworkers from other industries who do all the things that space needs, whether it is rocket science or it's HR. Invite them. They may not think, I'm not a space person. I couldn't have a career in space. Yes, they could. We need them. Invite other people to become nerds with us. The other invitation is to all the people who could benefit from space, maybe aren't, certainly don't see how they are. Invite them to understand what they need and how we might give it to them. We, the people in this room, the people in the space industry, we need to have our heads in orbit but our feet firmly planted on the ground, thinking about how space is a medium through which we serve. Space needs all kinds of people. All kinds of people need space. This is our wonderful, happy burden. Let's go carry it out. Thank you.